Coolio. I'm Chris.
Sweet.
I'm Edison.
I'm Kyle.
And I am Ramo.
And this is Tanks and Things. I did that wrong again. Kyle. What do we do here at Tanks and Things?
We talk about fish tank stuff and science of fish tank stuff. And I just hang out and talk about plants like the weirdo in the corner.
Well,
that's what we do on here.
And then today on our show, we're going to be diving into Blackwater aquariums and why they obviously are the best environment by far. And we're going to talk about the episode that we're going to be making on YouTube at the end of March. And
and some shorts coming out that we're going to be.
Oh, yeah. And some shorts that we're going to be starting pretty soon. So roll the intro.
Alrighty, we're back.
Cool. So I guess for this week only, we have to let our special guest introduce himself and go on a little mini tangent, mostly because that's what we do every week.
Sweet. So I'm Ramo. I've been keeping fish for, I don't know, I want to say close to 10 years now, on and off. Mostly I've been doing Blackwater tanks like this one right behind me. I'm a little bit partial to them. Strong favoritism there. But, you know, I keep fish, play music, stream occasionally. But, yeah, it's a little bit of what I do.
Coolio.
Well, you've been keeping fish about 5 times longer than I have, so. I'm just one of those funny people that just obsesses and researches everything.
Oh, I get it. I'm that same way. I mean, as soon as I start researching something, I'll just dive down a rabbit hole for weeks, you know. And
I guess it becomes a problem though when you end up buying into it too much.
Right.
You start researching things like lizards or bearded dragons or something, and then all of a sudden, instead of a science channel about fish tanks, you're now keeping a science channel about anything that could go into a glass container.
Yeah, anything that could fit into a container in your house.
It's true.
And, or even
Talking
outside
to your landlord,
house.
like, hey, here's why I don't have rent this month. But look at this bearded dragon.
Yeah, so about that.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Kyle, the first thing I need to ask you is your tanks. I received no video, sir, and I'm a little offended.
You're going to call me out right here?
Just
I
a little.
have a picture. Dude, I've been like pedal to the metal since I got back. We flew back on Sunday. I got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old through 2 airports with flight delays. Woke up straight into work. And like last night, I did actually get to clean up my Nano, which I don't know. Maybe in post I can send you pictures and you can throw one up. But that thing, it's interesting. There was like little to no algae. I had a little green green spot algae, which is generally like a phosphate deficiency, and that was it. I mean, it looked like a jungle. It was way overgrown, which was expected. But I mean, I was thinking I was going to come home to like green walls and stuff after a month of like no water changes, no dosing, no nothing. But yeah, and I still haven't touched, which I think I'm going to do tomorrow, my 30 gallon, which is what used to be more so my grow out tank that I would sell from. But that thing's looking sad, man. It's looking really sad. But is what it is. You know, we will rebuild, essentially.
It's true. Kyle?
What?
Not Kyle. Sorry. Edison.
I've been just doing the work in the school. I've done something I probably shouldn't have this week. I put a beta in with my pea puffers.
Uh-oh.
But everything seems to be going okay because the female beta is just super chill, and then the pea puffers just don't really care, and so they don't really bother each other.
Yeah, famous last words until you forget to feed your pea puffers once.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. That's the thing. And this is something I want to do in our shorts that we're doing. Pea puffers are really misunderstood. They're not super aggressive when kept in a shoal. It's only when they're kept alone and they get stressed out because they're kept alone, because they're one of the only shoaling puffer fish.
Mhm.
And so when they don't have a shoal, they get stressed out and get mean.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I've got a few friends that keep pea puffers, and they've mentioned that they can be aggressive, but I haven't really seen any sort of aggression when they're kept in a group like that. So I guess that does kind of make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the tetra thing. Tetras are generally really peaceful fish because they just do their thing as long as they have their shoal.
Right.
I don't know. I still hate tetras.
Excuse me,
Hate
sir?
tetras?
Mostly
me?
because they prey on other fish that are slower than them. So like I had like 7 panda cories go belly up because tetras just kept
Aw.
nipping at
Oh,
all of their
man.
fins.
Oh,
Punking
really?
at 'em?
I've had more problems with fish tearing apart tetras than tetras tearing apart fish.
Interesting. Yeah, mine's been the exact opposite, but I guess it depends.
Well, and you have to realize, I think they're in the same family as piranhas.
Yes, they are.
Tetra are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That explains so much. That explains so much.
Yeah.
I one time bought a pacu. No one explained to me what a pacu was.
Oh no.
And it grew up and then ate everything in my tank. That was it. That I should have told that story last week. How?
Yeah,
What was
don't buy a
mistake?
pacu ever.
I bring it into like a local fish store and they're like, piranha is this Asian man. And I was like, it's just a pacu. Like, he's just really aggressive.
Yeah.
And then they educated me that it's a piranha, essentially.
Well, it's a
Sorry.
piranha. It's a vegetarian.
To be
Except
honest, though, I've swum with like full-size pacus, massive, about the size of your head pacus, and they're not too aggressive. They are, however, very feisty when it comes to like feeding. So like if you have any food on you and you're trying to like feed other things that matter and not the pacus, they will literally try to push you over and drown you to get the food out of your hand if they can.
That's a large fish to try to fight,
Oh yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth the hassle.
especially in their territory. That's
It's true.
No.
that's bold.
Though I've heard they are pretty tasty when fried.
I've heard that as well.
I mean,
I should have
okay,
tried
I
that.
guess.
It's
Fry 'em
it's
up.
the from where they're originally from in the Amazon River Basin. They get eaten.
Fry 'em
Is
up.
it? Yeah, it is Amazon River Basin. I'm
Yeah.
not going crazy. Again.
That's definitely true. Well, this week, I guess the only thing different is I don't know if you guys, I don't know if Edison or Kyle have noticed yet. Have you guys noticed yet?
Yeah, it's
The
definitely been rescaped. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to remove my giant piece of driftwood because it was fungal infection. And so I was like, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to yank it out.
Could
cut
you
off.
just like hydrogen peroxide the heck out of it and throw it back in?
Yeah, but it was
Or
such a
boil
big
it.
piece. Like it went literally the entirety
Yeah.
of the tank. And
Mhm.
so I will hydrogen peroxide in places later once it dries out. Because
Yeah.
I mean, once the spores are dry, they're not going to release anything anymore. But hydrogen peroxide should clean it up after anyway. So
Yeah.
anyway, so now it's sitting in my bathtub and
Sorry,
drying
wifey.
out completely. Yeah.
Your wife's happy about that.
Oh yeah, super happy about it. But yeah, that's basically all that's been kind of happening this week. So
Nice.
by the way, Ramo, this is when we prove that we are real life flashbacks. That's kind
Gotcha.
of the point. So it's not technically important that we do it, but it also proves that we are alive in some way and not just AI. So
Fair enough. I mean, I'll try to think of what one thing I've been working on this week, I started setting up a crab tank, a vampire crab tank.
Cool.
Ooh.
Got a paludarium going, 20-gallon long, Sirius stone scape. I'll have to send some pictures. I'm not sure if you guys all have Discord. I'll definitely send some pictures. And I actually just got a shipment of plants for it today. So I started planting some of the aquatic plants in there. Got a few crypts, some hydrocotyle, a few things like that. I'm sure the crabs are going to go through and just destroy everything
Oh yeah.
as they tend to do.
I could see that.
But that's kind of the plan. I'll get some shrimp before I get crabs, kind of get them settled in, and then here in the next month or so, I'll probably end up getting the vampire crabs.
Cool. Exciting.
Cool.
It is exciting. I've always kind of thought crabs would be fun, but then I'm like, setting up a paludarium just sounds like a lot of work.
It's surprisingly simple. I mean, well, yes and no. Once you apply enough things to either terrariums or aquariums, you kind of get just this nice, even mix right in the middle. I didn't have to do an actual filter setup, so I actually ran a pump underneath the land section and have all of my biological filtration through there with lava rock, and just have it come out the other side of the land feature. It's pretty straightforward once you get a good layout. As long as you draw something up, I'd say paludariums are easy. Just draw up an idea.
Like dry aqua.
I recommend it. Mhm.
That makes sense.
10 out of
Landscaping.
10.
There you go. So yes.
All right, Kyle,
Yes, sir.
do you want to read us through to one of the news segments? What's happening in the world? He doesn't have it up. I just
I
realized.
don't. I don't.
Okay, Edison.
All right. So there's I forgot to get these up, man. I'm special. It's been a long week. But anyway, unfortunately, the first thing we're gonna start with this sad news. Murph, the Mbu puffer, passed away. Aquarium Co-op's mascot, which is really sad.
How old was the
Yeah.
puffer?
I think it was like 13 or something.
13.
Like,
Yeah, he had to
Yeah.
have been up there.
Do you see it
Yeah.
coming? Was it like tragic or was it?
no, I think it was kind of tragic. I don't think it was planned. I don't know. I haven't talked to Corey yet to find out, but
That sucks, man.
yeah.
It's never fun losing older fish too. You've been around for a while with, It's one thing if like you get it and maybe they don't acclimate or whatever and they kick it, but 12, 13 years or whatever, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's like a dog almost.
yeah, exactly, man.
That's outliving some dogs, honestly. I mean,
Right.
Oh yeah. It's definitely
That's
true.
cat, man.
that's a commitment.
Yeah. It's like a snake can live for like 20 years, man, if you take care of them right. It's kind of one of those longer lived pets.
Family members at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it does a little bit more of a double whammy too, because he recently just upgraded his like enclosure to be like, I think it's like
Yeah.
a 700-gallon massive like undertaking. Basically made his own spot in the shop for him, basically, and then
And then he kicked it.
yeah.
It's a bummer. Sorry, Corey.
Yeah.
Feeling for you, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we definitely feel you. So, I guess next up, I found this news story and I thought it was hysterical. So we needed to immediately start laughing after talking about something sad. In Alabama, there's a man. Yeah,
This one.
exactly. In Alabama, there was a man who just got arrested. I think it was a month ago for skinny dipping in a Bass Pro Shop trout tank.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember seeing this article a little bit back.
Did
A
they at
couple
least
weeks
put-
ago.
Did they at least put some pants on him before they arrested him?
I
Or was he
I
just
don't
like
think so.
walked out to the cop car butt naked?
Jeez.
I assume
I mean,
so,
I-
but so according to what the report says, is he went to Bass Pro clothed, then got like changed out in the bathrooms, and then ran across the store and jumped into the tank.
Like, what was your plan there, man?
I mean, clearly he had one.
Oh, sure.
Just no exit strategy.
He had a plan to get in, and that's where it ended.
Yeah, there you go.
Didn't think I'd get this far, right?
Yeah,
Maybe he thought he was SpongeBob and needed to go back to nature.
He had to get in the water.
A trout. Yeah. He said he thought he was trout. It's like, okay.
Mhm.
I identify as a trout.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't start.
Please,
You don't want to
please
start
let
that on
me.
your channel. You can get the letter people after you.
Oh man,
Holy
Oh, speaking of
not,
letter
not
thing,
the alphabet gang.
speaking of letter people, the FDA has
Mhm.
approved a new glowfish type. Apparently, they're getting a angelfish in glowfish.
Really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's on
I
the
find
FDA.
it really messed up. Do a lot of people not find it messed up?
I do.
Is that like
In
people are like
a couple of ways.
Blowfish. I mean, if you don't own stock in it,
Right. If you don't own stock in it, it is pretty messed up.
Glowfish are
But-
fine in my opinion as far as like GMO. I don't that's
Mhm.
fine. They're healthy. They're not like suffering because of these genetic modifications. What they are suffering from is little kid says, "I want the pink fish," and then they put it in a bowl as a single
Yeah.
tetra or something, and you're like,
Yep.
no. And that's
Those
what
are the
happens.
messed up things, but
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
the most common end for a glowfish.
so it's GMO. I thought they were injected with something.
yeah.
No.
like
So they're both.
physical.
It depends on the species. So
That's
I
true.
guarantee the cichlid would probably be GMO'd and not injected.
Gotcha.
The
Mhm.
Corridoras are also GMO'd, and the Danios are, but I think the barbs are injected.
The GMO thing, I don't have a problem with. I mean, I do in other realms of our society, but I mean, if you just keep breeding glowy ones until they're super glowy, like that's just selective breeding. But
Yeah.
injecting fish, like imagine that's your
Yeah.
Monday. You wake up, some giant grabs you, and shoves a thing up your thing, and then you're like, I'm glowing now. Like, that's,
This is
Honey,
the
how
worst
was your
Monday I've
Monday?
ever had.
I got a story for you.
What do you mean this sounds like the worst Monday you've ever had? This sounds like a usual Monday for me.
Oh, your standard Monday.
Selective breeding, I don't mind. It's just that. It's just like, I almost said something. Screwing with animals to, for our pleasure or whatever. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
we don't need to be injecting fish. It's fine.
So
Right.
I kind of mentioned this over the group chat that we have, but I was on one of the teams that did the Zebra Danio GMO research. And when I was at BYU, Idaho. And I guess the issue is that it could shrink their metabolism rates, and to the point where they either are super docile or their metabolism is always kicking into high gear, which means their
Mhm.
longevity goes down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But outside of that, there was no real adverse effects on at least the individuals that we injected to pass down the traits, right? Those that had the traits passed down had an extremely high risk of just being stillborn, or in most cases they'd have like bent vertebrae syndrome, which in zebra danios is not uncommon, and other syndromes too that would just kind of pop up, like Angelina Jolie lips was a very common one too for them. Yeah, she seems
So
like
they
the
are.
person
So they
that
are
would
messing with
sue.
them. It's not just selectively breed. It's not like culling. It's like
No.
Right.
So they're
No.
all of them are injected with something.
Yeah, so the one out of the
Mhm.
first generation, so all of the first generation was injected, and
Mhm.
then you would measure the generation birth rates and death rates between generations as they
Yeah.
come.
Glowfish,
So-
man.
Yeah, so I believe
Glowfish.
glowfish have like the It's like from a jellyfish, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And it's just been tacked onto their genome, so they express this gene. It's from what I understand, glowfish are just as healthy as other fish for the most part. At least modern glowfish.
Like I said, the only difference is you've increased your genetic susceptibility to things outside of that specific
right,
genome.
because it's not a genome that they're bred to have from nature.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the home aquarium, they generally do just fine as long as you take care of them and you don't just put them in a bowl.
Yeah, but I still think Kyle is going to disagree with us, mostly because glowfish tanks can't support plants at all, basically.
Well, it
Why is
depends on
that?
how you do it. Well,
It
you
depends
can't,
on that.
because sometimes I got like 2 glowfish Danios just because I thought it would be funny, because I was like, I want to get a pink fish that will outlive any other pink fish ever. And just give it like
Happy
the
with your
best
decision.
life.
Got his own tank. So no, why can't you have plants with a glowfish tank? Is it
Just
just
because they use blacklight in order to use the bioluminescent gene. And so I don't know about you, but plants don't like black lights, do they?
I don't know. I've never tried to put a black light on my tank before.
Well, that's something that I think we should do next, is maybe just send Kyle a black light and see what
Let's
happens.
do it. Let's do it.
Watch him just get overtaken by the vines.
I know,
Yeah.
exactly. We call him one day and he's like the end of Jumanji.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that would be interesting to see. I wonder if, well, I guess it has to have something, some pigment that's gonna, glow under a black light. But I had a reef tank that got killed by a natural disaster up here. But prior to, I never liked the whole like fluorescent look of the tank. I always liked the more natural, what you would see, snorkeling or scuba diving kind of thing. But I wonder if a black light would do anything with the tank, if it would reflect anything back. But
So
yeah.
I have 2 questions. First, obviously you're in California, so maybe halides are not the best option because of the cost to run them. But have you ever considered halides for your reef tank? And second question, what is a natural disaster that occurs inside the house that causes a marine tank?
Outside the house,
Flooding.
it causes power, and then to evacuate the area for a week because you have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And that thing went 2-3 days without power. Well, power of the house, but 20 degrees outside, and this is like a 10 by 10 room in my basement, which is my office. So it got nuked. I came back. And the only thing that was living was the conch shell. He was still footing around, eating stuff, man. I'm like, this guy has seen it all. But
Well, he got a feast because he ate all your expensive.
Yeah, I was about to say he got a feast for once.
It was like $2,500 worth of coral, a lot of SPS, a lot big old NAM, like, and I don't know. So one of my sad fish stories is this happened in 2019, where we lost power and I had a 6-month-old, and we lost power twice for 5 days. One of the days I was here to keep the house warm, it happened again, and I was running out of wood, like not good with a 6-month-old. So I had to bounce out. Came back to all of my fish dead. The Neos survived. The colony of Neos survived, probably 40s in the house, I would guess. Trippy. But I had what are the roseline tetras and angelfish, like 3-4 years, some of these guys, and the whole thing got wiped. So part of me is like, shame on a me thing. If I'm home, I can kick my generator on now that I have a generator, but this was unavoidable.
Yeah.
It sucks. So now I'm like, I've been sitting there for probably 6 months, and I don't have the heart to tear it apart. And I'm like, maybe I should go back. And then I'm like, I don't want to spend all this money and then have it crap out again. Oh, I don't know.
What
fish tank lives.
Going back into halides, obviously. Have you ever
I've never tried halides. So when I started in 2015, it was like power compacts and halides essentially. So I did a lot of power compacts, and back then you did watts per gallon, right? So I could get what I needed out of a power compact as far as Kelvin and watts per gallon was, because I've always kept smaller tanks. I haven't had the room or energy to be doing weekly water changes on a big old tank like yours. I mean, they're gorgeous, but like 120, 220, maybe later on down the road when kids are out of the house and all that jazz, and I got too much free time. But I've been able to do what I needed to do with power compacts and then move straight into LEDs. What, 5? No, longer than that, because it's 2024 now. Shoot. What, 2015, 16 is kind of when LEDs came on the market and they were kind of new. And then it's just always done LEDs from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, halides, they produce a lot of energy, which is great. They also need a lot of energy to get there and then run really hot too.
Yeah.
So
usually on halide tanks, I never run heaters whatsoever, but
oh yeah, I don't need
they are super nice for at least like simulating and like the actual sun, right?
Yeah.
But they're also way like they are so inefficient that you could literally in California, I'd imagine if you had a reef tank that had a halide, your bill would go up $200 a month. Guaranteed.
Oh yeah, yeah, and a lot of us were doing that T5s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
A bunch of like 4, 6, 8 T5s, right? And then you'd have the, I don't forget the Color Max ones, the ones that were like pink, and you'd mix a couple of those in, with the white ones. They had the kind of bluish ones too, but yeah, that was that. I mean, back in the day, like when I started, I was living with my dad in this little apartment, and like basically went out to Petco, didn't tell him, bought it, the whole new startup kit, and like dropped the tank on my dad in the living room at like 17, 18. And he's like, Kyle, let's talk about the tank, And I'm like, what do you mean? So he ended up liking it. He was cool with it, but I've kind of been on other people's space and time till, I don't know, got a little older, but California, all the cool places, it's a lot of apartment living, so not a lot of space to have big tanks and stuff. But
yeah, that's
by the time I could have the space, now I got kiddos and I have a hard enough time protecting a 30-gallon.
Yeah, I guess that's definitely true.
Kiddos.
Yeah, my daughter's almost 4, so I get it. Anywho, anybody else have anything that they heard this week from the newsworthy things that we should talk about?
Nothing I can think of.
Yeah, nothing coming to mind.
Recently, I found a project called Fish Wiki. Pretty interesting. I'll put in a plug for them because they're doing a good thing. It's basically Wikipedia, but for fish keeping, and so
Fishwiki.org.
Yeah, I believe so. It's like the blue book with the fish on it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the one. Really good stuff, and then they're always looking for people to help contribute and support.
Fishwiki's live.
Awesome. So if anybody watches this and needs either help trying to figure out what fish they have, or probably what to do with a fish that they currently have, or want to contribute to a new source of material, that's an option, right? I lied. I think I do have one more news story, but I don't have the source, nor do I have like the reason why, but it's something I did read on Reddit. So I guess take it with a grain of salt. But someone someone was going to a ice skating rink in, I think, Southern California somewhere. And in the bathroom, there was a Gatorade bottle with a beta living in it.
Why did someone just dump it?
That's what I was thinking, is someone just dumped it. And so this person took it home with them, put it in a tank, and they never owned a tank prior. And they were like, we're just helping this beta because... Adopting, basically. Yeah. And I don't want to say it was one of the prettiest betas I've ever seen in my life, but it was like a full half moon clowntail, like adult male, blue, yellow kind of mix. And I was just like, who in the world dumps a beta in a bathroom at an ice skating rink like this?
It sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks for the beta. I mean, it's cool that the person took
at least they got found.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
At least the beta got like taken, but like still, it's frustrating.
Well, depending
Yeah.
on which kind of Gatorade bottle. If it's like the regular 28-ounce one, it's
No,
still
no,
living better.
no.
It's
There's not
living
a
better
size.
than
That
in
doesn't matter.
PetSmart.
No, don't even go down that route.
It's a Gatorade
Back
bottle.
up.
Come on.
Back up.
Until they start coming out with 5-gallon Gatorade bottles, I'm not buying.
Besides, the heater
Sorry.
might melt it if you don't know what you're doing.
Right. Oh,
'Cause that's your biggest concern.
That's
Yeah,
the first
did you-
concern that pops in my head.
did you guys see that fairly new Neocaridina color? The orange sunburst. It's like an orange koi sunburst.
No.
It's yeah. It as far as I've seen, it's only really available in Germany. I was gonna try and
sense.
Sun
I was gonna
kiss?
try and look into getting an import license for it, but as far as I know, let's see, orange koi sunburst.
There's a sun kiss one. That just kind of looks like normal orange.
Let me see if I can find a link.
We need screen share
I think you
capability.
can
Yeah.
do screen share through video.
I think you can. Neocaridina, if I can spell.
That's cool, man. It's always a trip. Like some of these like color variations and stuff that end up getting bred
Koi
in. and-
sunburst. There we go. I'll see if it'll load up. Here we go.
I want to see.
Oh, wait.
There it
What
is.
the heck? That is crazy.
So it's fairly new as far as I've seen. Only really available in Germany right now. This website is a German site, but as far as I've seen, it does breed fairly true. You will have to kind of cull some out that don't pass on these same exact traits,
Yeah.
but these are sort of the stock that they're working with.
That's crazy. Just that first picture, man.
Yeah,
Like that's a
I
trip.
mean, it is.
I got a buddy out in Vegas who's starting to do shrimp out there because the community in Vegas is really strong, and community, not just like a bunch of people
Mhm.
hanging out, like trading plants. Like it's a unique little ecosystem for them. He's starting up a shrimp kind of side business thing. But man, I got to get him checking out some of those, dude. Because
Yeah.
if you can get those in the States, like you go
Oh,
nuts
yeah.
with it. Like
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Shrimplicity is his little hustle name, but
Mm.
that guy can breed shrimp, man. I'll tell you that much.
Oh yeah, yeah. The folks that are really into it, I mean, it's incredible that even just the numbers that they can put out, let alone the different color variants that you can find. I mean, it's
Yeah.
incredible.
I wanted to do a Skittle tank for my daughters. Do a bunch of them,
Oh,
just
yeah.
let them go wild.
yeah.
It's always fun.
Yeah, I know. I heard it takes like, I don't know, a generation or two before you start getting into the brown, but that's a good
Mhm.
year, right? That's a solid
Yeah.
12 months.
Yeah.
Or you could get
Maybe.
the
Even some of the brown ones I tend to like. You
Yeah,
start getting all sorts of different patterning on them.
yeah. The racing stripes.
Right.
I think
the
those are
shrimp
really cool.
just fun to watch in general.
Oh yeah.
They don't stop eating.
I know they're always
Yeah.
busy. Like, what are you up to, bro? Just wasting things to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
love it.
those bamboo shrimp too are crazy, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
with the fingers.
Yeah,
Those are a trip.
I should get
Those
some.
are
bamboo.
like on the saltwater side of things, like pom-pom crabs, right? Where they have like the little bubble
Mhm.
tip and
Yeah.
that they're filter feed through.
They're filter feeders. Yeah.
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 Yeah, there's vampire shrimp that have a very similar thing too. They got like fans essentially.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And I'm fairly certain they use them to filter feed, but I'm not positive on that one.
Or it's just like the males that have them for mating, like peacocks.
Mm.
Go up to a female.
Check 'em out, fan.
Right.
Yeah, check them out. man.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You like the turtles where they like slap her face?
Yeah.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
I've
they're
never
just like
seen that. Come on, babe. Let's do this.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, and did we
All
want
right.
to? Did we want to
Yeah.
announce our upcoming projects?
Yeah. Let's do that real quick. Edison, would you mind doing that real quick?
Okay, so the one coming up most soonest. Yeah, that's a word. The one that's coming up soonest is going to be the living thing of the day. We're going to be releasing a little 1 minute short highlighting a living thing of the day, whether that's a plant, a fish, a shrimp, or other invert. Um, just some little living thing of the day that we are passionate about.
Yep. And I think the goal with those is just to kind of get just their exposure out there because they're cool, right? Everything that we deal with in tanks is pretty cool. And there's a lot of oddball things that not a lot of people get exposure to that I feel like would be awesome to kind of cover. So we're going to start with kind of basic ones like cories and, shrimps and that kind of stuff. But, you know, who knows? We might get spiders. That'll be great. That'd be awesome.
Where are you guys
I like
posting these?
We were going to post them on TikTok, right? And
Yeah,
YouTube
and
Shorts.
YouTube Shorts, as long as they're under a minute, because YouTube yells at me if not.
Yeah. For the shorts.
Under a minute, or what if it's like just a minute?
If
It
it's a
won't let you
minute,
go past 60 seconds.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got 30, I think it's 15, 30, and 60 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing one for the pea puffer last night. I was putting one together, and I was like, yeah, I have 2 minutes of stuff, and that was really condensed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sticklers about that
Editing
for
those
sure.
things down is just difficult. We could do multi-parts too, technically, but I mean,
I don't ever get that because it's like, check us out in part 2, and then it serves me some other random video, and I'm like, I'm never gonna find this dude's part 2. Like, I gotta like dig for 15 minutes to find out what happened with this bird that got released. Like, then you're on a mission for half of the night. Like,
Oh, and that's like the worst thing on like TikTok. They'll share like a Reddit story or something, and then only post half of it.
they do it on purpose.
Yep, and then you try and search through their account. There's nothing, and you're just like, just post the extra 30 seconds.
Yeah,
TikTok
I don't feel like
lets
it helps
you.
them any. I don't feel like it helps them.
it's like the worst.
What do I know?
And then I guess the second thing is we're starting to make preparations for our first ever special that we're going to be doing. We are going to, it'll be probably towards the end of March, beginning of April, but we're going to see how much tank can we get with $100, and it'll be a kind of a race and a challenge and competition between me, Kyle, and Edison to see who makes the best looking tank. And there's going to be a wonderful twist in the fact that someone's going to be stuck with PetSmart and they can't go anywhere else for their stuff.
Well,
Oh, I can already imagine.
yeah.
But that's I've also decided there is just no way I think we could do it with like everything. So I'm pretty sure you're allowed to go to Home Depot to get like gravel and sand and stuff and things like that. But yeah, should be
Or
a
we just
good.
do a glass bottom tank.
Okay, I mean, should I
Well,
do
it
that
depends
without
on what
plants?
it depends on what you're trying to do. If Kyle gets PetSmart, he's going to be really sad because there's no plants.
Yeah, basically.
There are some.
You can find some.
They're not great.
No,
No.
Oh, not at
they're,
all.
they're pretty rough.
They are.
They're
Yeah.
in pretty rough shape.
Half
Usually,
of them
yeah.
aren't even aquatic. Half of them are
Right.
like semi or terrestrial, and it's like, why are you selling them as
Yeah.
aquatic plants? Like, hope you enjoy that one.
Yeah.
Have fun with that
Enj-
being dead.
Yeah, like what? Just talk about
Yeah.
not setting people up for success, man.
Yeah. I don't know why
know.
they're selling succulents in the aquarium section, but
Are they?
no, I haven't
Oh, I
seen
was
any
gonna say.
succulents. In there.
I was like,
That'd be fun.
I
to
mean,
see.
I wouldn't
Still
put it
sells
past them, you
Fish
know.
bowls.
I wouldn't either.
Oh, terrible.
So, yeah. You want to talk about them not setting up people for success? You can go look at the
Yeah.
fish bowls at PetSmart.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I don't want to
Betas.
say Walmart's done that, but Walmart still sells the Beta View tanks, like the half-gallon
Oh.
bookshelf ones.
Yeah.
The half
So,
gallon
I
that
mean-
has like a divider in it, so you can
Yeah,
have like
yeah, yeah.
two
Yeah.
betas
Yeah.
in your half gallon.
Yeah.
Terrible.
2 tanks for the price of 1.
It's horrible.
It's awful.
Stop it, Walmart. Stop it, PetSmart.
Well, they'll stop it when they stop making profit off of it.
Just
Yeah.
start selling real plants and stuff. I don't know.
It's true.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I guess if that's the last bit of our announcements, we'll get into kind of the questions and the meat and potatoes of why we're here. Obviously, we're here to talk about Blackwater environments and why it's the best environment in the entire world. And you guys can't argue with that, obviously. And
There's no arguing.
yeah, exactly.
I'll win.
So kind of to kick things off, well, first, I guess this is our weekly we need questions. Please submit them to oftanksandscience@gmail.com or to us through our different platforms that we present on. Obviously, we enjoy answering these questions, and especially if they come from the actual people in the crowd and not just us making up baloney from the abyss. So with that out of the way, what specifically makes a Blackwater environment?
So, a Blackwater environment tends to be an environment with a low pH. That's one of the main characteristics of them. Not always, but usually it falls below 7. There's heavy tannins in the water. Tannins being a brown colored, well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a pigment, but it does tend to stain.
It's
It
Go
looks
ahead.
like tea.
tea.
Yeah, it looks like tea. Tea is actually full of tannins. That's why it's brown. And a lot of times you can actually use certain types of tea in your aquariums. You can use rooibos tea is a very common one to use. I've used it personally, and yeah, Blackwater tends to almost look black, which is where it gets its name. Pretty self-explanatory on that
It's
one.
an aspen because that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's
So-
the way it is.
You can tell it's an aspen because of the way it is.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, can you technically have a Blackwater tank without the tannins? Can you just have like low pH, or would it not be technically Blackwater because the tannins are what make it Blackwater?
The tannins are kind of what make it a Blackwater tank. If you have low pH, it's, I guess just an acidic tank.
Yeah, I guess at that point, yeah.
Need them tannins, man.
Besides,
Yeah,
I would think it would be hard to safely lower the pH and maintain a low pH for the fish without tannins.
right. Yeah, and a heavy part of that is degrading biological matter. You've got decaying leaves, you've got driftwood, seed pods of various different plants. I mean, all of that stuff is breaking down in the tank and creating that color. And
Yeah.
that's what's lowering that pH. And it actually draws minerals out of the water. It softens the water, lowers the pH, and yeah, that's depending on the fish, a lot of them tend to do a lot better in Blackwater.
I guess, yeah, because it depends, because if you have a Blackwater environment near like a delta, there is a definite divide between the fish that live in both sides of that kind of a
Right.
situation where one has hard water, right, and the other has this kind of really basic and really kind of acidic water that's just super soft. So
Well, and what I understand about the way dissolved organic carbon compounds, whatever you want, DOCs, how they interact with the fish and how it interacts with everything, because of the lower pH, there's less microbes that are able to thrive in that environment, as well
Yeah.
as without the nutrients in the water, because it softens the water. Without as many nutrients, there's not as many microbes that can survive. So it's healthier for the fish in that way because they don't have to develop an immune system that's as advanced. And the tannins do a lot of good for them in their gills and other things.
Mm-hmm. But that actually becomes a little bit of a double-edged sword when you bring it into an aquarium because of cycling. Think of your nitrogen cycle. It's bacteria that's breaking down all of your ammonia and your nitrites into nitrates. But, what would take the place of that in, say, a tank with 5.0 pH? That'd be archaea, turns out.
Yeah.
Archaea tends to sort of take the place, and it doesn't do quite as efficient of a job as your nitrifying bacteria, but
it has multiple more steps than nitrifying bacteria has
it does
order to actually start breaking down that matter. So,
but yeah, and I understand your typical nitrosomids, they actually start dying off about 6 pH.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say it's right around 6 or a little bit below. Or a little above 6.
I guess also
is when it really starts to slow down. Go ahead.
Another benefit to, I was just thinking of this, is Blackwater environments. And I guess also if you're looking into like the upper alkaline scale of this, right, it's hard water environments. Both of those are buffered up until a certain point. And so you can put as much, I don't want to say tannins into water, but it can't drop lower than organic like compound bonding can, basically.
Right.
Or like 4.9, 4.7 basically is as lowest as possible that you can go. But it's same on the opposite too. If you put a bunch of calcium carbonate inside of fresh water, it'll buffer up to 7.9 and then stop kind of until you add salt or any type of salinity or other hardness type of chemicals to it. So
exactly. So I've always erred on the side of add more organic materials, and then I can sort of buffer it from there if I need to. I've never had any sort of need to try and buffer the pH up. A lot of the fish that I've kept in Blackwater have been fine down to your 5.5 and below, and here I've got a wild type beta embellus,
cool.
And he's doing great in, under 6 pH, easily under 6.
That brings up a good point about understanding the environment and the region in which it comes from and what fish are native to that region. So you're not trying to toss in a cichlid in a Blackwater tank as a newbie mistake.
Yeah.
There are
that would be
cichlids
the
some cichlids are okay.
right.
There's a handful that are okay.
Like I understand.
Angelfish do great.
Yeah, angelfish. That's what I was going to say.
But I think what we're talking
my
about
point,
is like the
but we get
real, the real cichlids.
Yeah, don't
ones.
drop in like
Yes.
a Lake Tanganyika cichlid.
Yeah, don't.
That would be a bad idea.
Match your fish to your environment is the point.
Yeah, don't try shell dwellers in Blackwater. It's a terrible idea.
What is a rapid fire list of good fish for Blackwater tank? Go.
Rapid fire list, I'd say bettas, tetras, angelfish, gourami can do pretty well. Rasboras do great.
Yeah.
I would say your plecos are one of the
on shrimp.
Go heavy. Yeah, shrimp can do pretty well in Blackwater depending on the species. Plecos do great. Any of the plecos are what are generally called plecos. Any of your Loricaridae are doing great in Blackwater.
Cool.
Even some of your rams can do pretty well in Blackwater, and your geophagus can do pretty well in Blackwater.
How do live bears do in Blackwater?
Live bearers, it really does depend. Live bearers
would hate it. Don't put mollies in it.
Yeah,
don't put mollies in there.
Going in a Blackwater tank.
You might barely be able to get away with like endlers or something, but it's
Yeah, because
I would always err towards more of a basic with any kind of live bearer. Really, a lot of
Yeah,
the
they-
live bearers tend to be able to even go to brackish and sometimes salt waters.
Yeah, that's
so
why Molly's specifically. Yeah,
right, Molly's specifically. But yeah, a lot of them, seeing as they tend to move towards that environment more, I would try to stay away from Blackwater with them. But
and also I'd
It
say
can work.
any fish that doesn't have a migrational or an immigration pattern for
Yes.
reproduction would be
Right.
a good option for Blackwater. Mostly because obviously they need the change in pH, and Blackwater is not going to give them any change in pH. That's kind of the goal with those kinds of environments. So
mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, but discus or Blackwater as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, discus do well in Blackwater. It's anything that does really well in a softer, warmer water will do well in Blackwater from what I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah, low pH.
Hmm.
I guess now is the perfect time than any, but Fitz actually makes botanicals now that you can buy at. I think they actually got the contract with PetSmart, so that's I guess the bad side of that. But Fitz still also has the contract with Petco to do almond leaf extract too. So I mean, I guess it's two sides of the same sword. I guess one gets the actual botanicals, and the other one gets just the extract. So
Right.
Well,
And a lot of times I'll pull things out of my yard. Honestly, I know where things come from in my yard. At least I don't use any kind of pesticides or anything like that. But if you've got an oak tree, a maple tree, a cottonwood tree in your yard, you've got a pretty easy source of botanicals right there that you could use for Blackwater.
it's definitely true.
Mhm.
Maple trees, especially, they're super great.
Maples,
but
yeah, maples do. Maples are great for it. Birch trees, you can use the cones.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably
don't use the wood from a birch tree because I've made that mistake.
don't use the wood. Don't use the wood.
It's like
You
using
can
pine.
use the cones, but not,
Nukes the tank.
right. Magnolia, you can use the seed pods and the leaves.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a number of different things you can use if you've got a tree in your yard. There's a possibility you can use it.
I guess the only asterisk with that is be careful if you live in the coast because we're not going to be responsible if you put eucalyptus inside your aquarium.
Yeah, don't use eucalyptus. Whatever you do, no eucalyptus, no pine, no bay trees. You're not making a stew. Don't use bay trees.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess.
I did.
Sorry,
have
Edison.
one more
Go on.
question.
Go ahead.
So in my situation, my tap water is pretty hard as far as like carbonate hardness, because I have a water softener that lowers the general hardness, not carbonate. Well, but
Right.
from what I understand, tannins that make the black water are pretty good to put in just about any fish tank in lower amounts. Probably not as many as you'd find in your black water tanks, but like it's beneficial for pretty much all fish in freshwater environments.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that tannins, even in low amounts, tend to be beneficial because of those antimicrobial properties that you had mentioned before. A lot of that tends to help out, especially if you have, a fish that's got even, say, fin rot or something like that. I've heard of people using catappa leaves to kind of help with that. That's sort of a natural remedy.
So, Edison, now you get to go out and go buy some tea bags and throw them in your tank.
Go teabag your tank.
Get
Edison.
that Earl Grey,
Yeah. Kyle!
What?
Get
Wait.
roared, boss. Don't.
Where's your mind
Don't get-
going with that, Chris? Wanna
Nowhere at all, sir. Nowhere.
Oh,
Story about tea bags.
Not
we
to
actually,
Halo from 2010.
maybe I'm dating myself with Counter Strike.
Halo 2.
If you know,
Especially
you
my
know.
big tank, you know.
If
Yeah.
you know, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Hmm.
Edison, what are you doing? Get down from there.
Leave me alone. I'm playing big team battle on Zanzibar.
Got to show my fish who's boss.
The question is, can you put aquarium in your tea? You can put tea in your aquarium.
Interesting story about that.
No.
Now I'm intrigued.
I have a video of myself trying the water after boiling botanicals,
Oh yeah.
and
What does that taste like?
surprisingly
Under-
it's not bad. Surprisingly not bad. It's a very subtle tea flavor.
Interesting.
But I mean I boiled, oak leaves, some manzanita twigs. I mean, you name it, I threw it in there. A lotus pod.
You gotta try it, man. You gotta try
Yeah.
it.
I figured, a lot of people have contemplated, when are you going to try the Blackwater botanicals,
Yeah.
try out the soup that you've just prepared on the stove.
Got
So I
at
let
least
it cool
once.
down, and I had to try it.
Yeah.
I let the intrusive thoughts win, and, and I'm still
now
here.
Now you can tell them you tried it, and now they gotta
I've tried it. Yeah.
It's almost as bad as me being a geologist and eating a rock to tell what kind it is.
I mean, it works.
Look at
That also reminds me of it's a complete tangent, but
That's what we do.
my boss at work, he was in the Army, and he was a vehicle mechanic, and one of the guys that was stationed with him in Germany was a generator mechanic, and they had these two big generators that they were working on, and they couldn't figure out what was going on with them. And one guy was like, I don't know what's wrong. I can't seem to figure it out. And the other mechanic grabs the dipstick out of the engine and licks it. He says, "Yep, wrong oil." Puts it back in there. And he puts it back in there, and the guy who's now my boss was like, is this guy messing with me? Did he really just taste the oil? But sure enough, it was the wrong type of oil. And what stuck out to me about that was that not only did he taste the oil, but he knew the difference between different types of oils by memory.
By taste.
He had done it enough times to be able to memorize the flavors of different oils.
It's a pro
It's,
right there.
5W30.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I plan to get to that point with botanicals at some point.
Yep,
Oh yeah,
use pine.
Yeah, if you use pine, it's not going to work out. It's toxic.
Yeah.
No birchwood.
Birch, yeah. Getting notes of birch.
Yeah, this is no good. Throw it out.
This.
Yeah. It's that eucalyptus oil. We can't have that in here.
Yeah. Get to the point where you can taste the nitrates in your aquarium.
Right.
Yeah, good luck with that.
That's how you tell if it's cycled.
That's how you tell the cycle. You heard it here first.
Yeah,
Not
like
too
when my
much
tank
ammonia.
nitrates.
Oh,
You imagine?
High nitrites. You got to wait.
Walks
Give
off.
it, give it more time.
Just walks off.
Yeah.
I got an aquarium water in my mouth once, and I almost threw up.
Yeah. I mean, just
great.
the thought of it is rough.
It's not
Yeah.
great.
The flavor of it's probably not that great.
Well, and it's probably worse if you keep salt water.
Oh yeah, I'd imagine.
dirty saltwater smells so bad and tastes even worse.
Oh no.
Oh yeah,
You sound like you've experienced this.
Yeah.
just a little bit. A lot of it.
Those are flashback words.
Trying to start the siphon. and it's
Vietnam
like,
is starting to play in my head.
you just triggered a Vietnam flashback.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like this next question because, well, and I think Kyle's gonna like this next question too.
yeah.
what kind of plants can you keep in a Blackwater environment?
Plants. Oh man, you're awfully limited on plants just because of the low light levels that can kind of get through there. But surprisingly enough, in here I've got quite a few different types of plants. I mean, you can see the hygrorrhiza growing up out of the tank and on top of it, for that matter.
Okay, yeah.
But you know, floater plants tend to do great. But any of your basic plants, like your Anubias, your Bucephalandras, those ones tend to do pretty well, actually. Vallisneria does really well in lower pHs, from my experience.
I love it
Plus,
how you
it
had
gets
the end, my experience at the end, because Kyle looks like he's about to like go ham.
yeah.
Oh no, no, not at all. No,
Yeah.
I'm actually quite interested. I did a little experiment with Melanie Holmes. She's called the Queen of Blackwater. She's a professional aquascaper. Does a lot of stuff with Fluval or Tropica. Sorry, Melanie, if I butcher that. We did an experiment with adding plants to a tank and saw to try to see what would do well, what wouldn't do well. And I chose a handful of plants that are in that vicinity, essentially, where most of Blackwater is. And actually, I'm sorry, this is like Southeast Asia is what we were trying to get with. But continue, and then I can kind of share our experience after the fact.
Yeah. One big thing that kind of helped me pick out what plants I was going with, I asked other people who lived in the same places as bettas, you know, because that's what I was really going for with this tank. You know, I kind of looked what grows in Southeast Asia, or what grows, say, with my 50-gallon. What kind of stuff do you find out in the Amazon in those same kind of environments that work in the hobby? You know, Hygrorrhiza was one of the big ones that I had found. Duckweed, as much as everybody hates it, grows in everything.
It's the herpes of plants.
It really is.
It really is.
I mean, I've found it in barrels that I've left outside for a couple of years. You know,
still there.
I feel like
it's still out there.
I feel like you have algae, and then have like duckweed.
There we go. Yeah,
like right next to each other. It's like duckweed's just this much better than algae.
I will say, with Blackwater tanks like this, I've never had an algae problem.
Yeah,
I have never had one algae problem.
Yeah.
It becomes so much easier.
Not enough light.
Yeah, there's not enough light, or really, you know, nutrients suspended in the water to allow for that high algae growth. And you know, that's one of the major benefits that I've always seen to Blackwater, is that you can have these natural looking environments that don't get overrun with algae, just because of those low light levels. But like I was saying, Anubias has done really well for me. I've had a couple of crypts do well. My Parva seems to be doing pretty well in low light, surprisingly. Yeah, I have a couple different types of Buse that are doing pretty well.
So what I'm understanding is typically plants that do better in low light and low nutrient levels do best in Blackwater.
Yep, absolutely. Root feeders can do pretty well just because they can pull anything from the substrate that wouldn't be suspended in the water column. But you know, that kind of depends on the depth of your tank, you know, how much light can really get down to them. At least in those situations.
Generally not hitting, from what I see with the like more traditional Blackwaters, they're more like hardscape and botanicals all over the place, right? You're not getting these like densely planted Blackwater tanks.
Right.
So within that, then you're not hitting the water column full with a ton of ferts and doing CO2 injection and high par and a lot of that other stuff that we see with kind of more like a Dutch style tank or something like that. But root feeding. Root feeders could feed from the root and then they don't need anything in the water column. You can just run it real lean. But
yep, exactly. Yeah, I haven't dosed any of my Blackwater tanks with anything, you know, apart from occasional feedings of more leaves.
Yeah, what's a water change schedule like for you on a Blackwater?
This tank behind me, I haven't done a water change since I've set it up.
How long's that been?
I'd say it's a little over a year now.
Okay, cool.
It's been a little bit over a year. The parameters have all been completely stable. Plants are still growing just fine. My beta's doing great in there. I mean, I still check on all of the parameters. You know, I still top it off. I keep a lid on it so he doesn't jump out.
Yeah.
But
Fish
because
jerky.
they are prone to jumping out if they get frightened. But he's pretty
Yeah.
calm. I've
Yeah,
never
that's good.
ran into any kind of issues with him even trying.
It looks like a 30-gallon, 40
It's
gallon,
26.
26-gallon. Okay,
It's a UNS. I want to say it's a 75S.
gotcha.
Mm.
Very cool.
I keep it, you know, usually about the 2/3 full mark, maybe 3/4 full. I always like to keep the water level kind of shallow since that's generally where it's at where they're from.
Yeah.
You know, betas are wide, shallow pools,
Mhm.
barely any water movement.
I was gonna say, what do you do for filtration, if anything at all? Because I do not see a
s-
lot of water movement.
So I had started the tank off with a filter for the first 3, 4 months, and then I ended up shutting it off. So there's no filter running on this tank.
Cool.
It does have a heater, but it's, you know, set to pretty low. I keep my room at a comfortable enough temperature for them.
Yeah.
I usually keep it about 74 in here, 75.
Yeah.
So I don't have to run a heater very high, if at all. And
Yeah.
yeah, he,
So I guess my question
he's
is
perfectly
what
fine. Go
happens
ahead.
to the nitrogenous waste then? Where does the ammonia go? Where does the nitrite go? Is it just broken down by the archaea living in the substrate?
Hmm.
So you have to
Yeah, and
understock
it's
a Blackwater
some.
tank.
Yes, I always understock my Blackwater tanks.
That makes sense.
That's a big thing for me. I always advocate for understocking them just because of that lack of nitrifying bacteria. You know,
We
so
talked about a
you've
lot,
got
2-3 weeks ago about that. And what is that website? Aqua Advisor, something advisor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Aqua Advisor.
mhm.
Yeah, Aqua Advisor, where it's like people like right out of the gate just crank it up to 11 because Aqua
Yeah.
Advisor told them, and it's like just
They
because
can't,
it says you
yeah.
can doesn't mean you probably should. Like,
Doesn't mean you should. That's
Yeah.
why I've got a 26-gallon tank with one beta.
yeah,
You know,
bio load's really
it.
low.
Yeah, I keep the bio load as low as possible so that any of the archaea or anything that would be in there that's breaking it down would be able to do its job just fine.
Nice.
Oh, that's really
Nice.
interesting.
Mhm.
Well, Kyle, anecdotes about plants in Blackwater environment.
I'll show since I know I can screen share now, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'll show the article that I ended up doing,
Cool.
and I don't know if this ends up killing my camera or not, but yeah, the experiment was since a lot of Blackwater tanks are not planted, right? You tend to see them more in this fashion. It's more hardscape kind of thing. I was like,
Mhm.
I reached out to her. She had seen some of the Aquascape Guide videos on YouTube, and we were geeking out about it. And then I was like, well, what if I sent you some plants? We did a little article to figure out what plants could live in a Blackwater type setup. So what we did with it, and it reflected a lot with what he was saying, was epiphytes did really well.
Yeah.
I was thinking they would because they're from the region. So Boos Crips, which is actually a Rosalat, however you say that. Anubis we had given her, I think I maybe gave her a Java fern as well. Hygrophila and Rotala for stems. But she was running an aqua soil in the back with the intention that would feed, as also he was saying, the more the root feeders, because you're not going to be
Mhm.
dumping ferts in it, right?
Right.
So she ended up escaping it, and it was great. The downside was as she's preparing these botanicals, she escaped it, dumped the botanicals in, and it seemed like the explosion of acid, and like just that settling period when she first set it up nuked the hygrophila and the rotala.
Oh man.
The Anubis and Boost were fine; those did well, and the Crypt pulled through okay. It seemed to not like it, and then it bounced back. But she was like, after the fact, I probably would have waited. Knowing what I know now, I would wait. So I would set the tank up, hit it with the botanicals, let it cycle and mature for a month, 2 max, and then plant it. Which makes sense, right? Like it's hard on plants moving from one situation to another. Mine I keep in a high light, CO2 injected, high nutrient system anyway. So as soon as we move them over, it's going to take them a little bit to kind of get used to its new home. But this was the scape she used them on. Just had a little kind of like Kessel light or Kessel knockoff maybe on it, and planted kind of just all the plants in the substrate. Either substrate in the back with the aqua soil or in the hardscape, and it came out well. She was really happy with it. I was going to try to send more plants to her, and I think she ended up moving on, and I didn't get plants to her, so everything just kind of moved on. But it's gorgeous tank. So epiphytes, as we're kind of seeing in general, seems like a very safe way to go about it. From one, tannins, and the reduction of light due to light not being able to pass through the water. And they're great, they're low light. They're great. They're very little needs as plants go, epiphytes in general. But then if you did go something like, again, I don't know how to say it, rosalot, like crypts, things of that nature would do well too, but they would need to feed from the roots. So you'd have to find a way to mitigate that. But after 6 months, this is kind of how it ended up looking. She had a little oase on there, but gorgeous. I mean, they look happy. Look really happy. But yeah, anyways, you can check this out, aquascape.com.
Woohoo.
Okay, stop sharing.
So how do I get one of those stickers that was on the corner of her tank, though? That's the question.
I have to order more.
Oh man,
I'll send you one. You want some? I need to re-up.
Oh, man.
They're actually I got them. They're like kids window glass.
Yeah,
They're like not real stickers. They're like, I forget what they call them.
The
Glass
static peels.
Yeah. The glass clings and static something. But I ended up getting those. So then they're not. I did a round of stickers and then realized I should probably not make these permanent for people, in case they didn't want to put them on the tank or wanted to move them around. But with any order on my website, I always, when you're a first time buyer, always throw them in my orders for everyone. But I'll get you guys some ASG static clings if you'd like. We'll hook it up. I'll talk to Phil.
Yeah, I mean, I do know the owner, so.
I know a guy.
I know, yeah. Phil gets kind of stingy, but I think I could talk him into it. We'll have to get him on the show one day.
One day. Well, I think the next one we're probably going to skip because it's almost been an hour and some odd. And so we could save it for another day, but just so people are aware, we were going to talk about can Blackwater environments exist in saltwater conditions?
I think Ramo already, no, it was you that answered it, because you start raising the hardness to make a saltwater environment, and Blackwater is very not hard water.
Yeah.
So
and there's a zone of mixing that happens, but like for instance, when we'll talk about this too when we talk about the different types of environments, but the Australian coastline, right, where you have saltwater and freshwater meets together, and you have these big deltas that are completely salt dominated, and then rainy season happens, and then you dump basically all of the tannins from the natural cork trees and natural woods in Australia that flood these entire coastal lines. The entire thing looks like tea basically, but it's not technically, I feel like, Blackwater in the sense that the pH is low, because the pH is pretty relatively high still, and the salt content is still pretty high. But actually, a lot of fish use that chemical change to induce like reproductive events too, which is kind of important.
Yeah, there is going to be a bit of a drop in, in your pH and your hardness, your salinity, and all that. But it's not going to be as drastic as, say, if you were to try and dump a bunch of tannins into your reef tank at home, you know,
Yeah.
it's going to end up balancing itself out and sort of just being a middle of the road tank with tannins and no salt.
And to these natural environments, you've had how would you put that? It would be a scale, right? The further
Yeah.
you go out, you're
Mhm.
going to get more ocean-like. As further you go in, you're going to get more fresh. And I'm sure
Yeah.
the triggering events for certain fish would happen at a certain level versus, a fish tank where it's like closed system, one
Yeah.
setting, it's only that setting. Like that way
Yeah,
livestock can kind of move around within that environment, find themselves to be comfortable.
Yeah, you've got that larger gradient
Yeah,
as
great.
far
There you
as as far as your
I guess it
your
also comes down to space too, right? If we really wanted to, we could replicate it, but I don't have a warehouse to put something like that in, and I
right.
don't think anybody does. So
we could though. We could.
Totally. Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
Well, I guess since we're on the subject of replicating tanks, I think the next topic up is how many different Blackwater environments are there and what makes them different. I guess also what makes them the same too, I guess just a little bit. And then this is a point for me to kind of stand back and we're going to use my tank as a whiteboard. And we're going to kind of list off a couple of the things that we talk about. So that way we have it for posterity. But we are limiting it to only tanks that could be reproduced in a home. So you could do environments like the Australian coastline, but those are done through time slices and not done through like long term, right? So probably not the best way to do that. So cool.
All right. So the first one that comes to mind is obviously going to be your South American biotope, your high flow, really, it's going to be warmer water, usually around 82 Fahrenheit. That's going to be sort of your plecos and things of mostly your plecos, I would say. A few of your tetras might be in that sort of environment.
Corridoras too, aren't they?
Yeah, Corey's for sure.
You could probably at those temperatures, you could probably get away with rams.
You could. They should be able to tolerate that higher flow. Because you tend to find those sort of environments, in your fingers of the Amazon River. There's also the larger pools where the water kind of stagnates and it's all sort of just flooded terrestrial plants, and it's sort of that environment. A lot of your marginal plants kind of come through there. Southeast Asia, of course, your betta environments, your rasbora environments. There's a lot of those. Those are going to be real shallow, still pools. Some of them are going to be temporary pools, hardly any sort of growing plants apart from your grasses that are sticking out of the water.
Isn't like lilies and lotuses kind of also like things that do photosynthesis surface of water?
Yeah, I would say so. A lot of the ones that sort of root feed but photosynthesize along the top. Those are the big two that come to my mind. Or I guess sort of three.
What's the sort of third one?
The sort of third one would be your big Amazonian pools where, it's sort of a flooded forest floor. all leaf litter. You know, that's where you tend to find a lot of your angel fish, some of your other tetras and stuff. That's more of your quarries than your higher flow river, you know, sections, I would say.
Yeah. There is one that I'm thinking of, mangroves. Mangroves are
Mangroves.
like backyard
Yeah.
basin mangroves, close to the coastlines, but not salt water.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, yeah, your mangrove forests, as far as, you know, your more inland freshwater ones. Yeah.
Aren't the mangroves more in brackish? Don't
They
they like
they
absorb the
can't
salt essentially?
so they have a way to filter the fresh water from the salt,
Yeah.
as far as I've heard, but they still tend to do well in freshwater.
Interesting. They're a trippy plant.
Mind you, they also have
They are.
adaptations that make it so they can grow in almost all types of water. Like it's
Mhm.
kind of, they're famous. They have those buttresses that like sprout up their roots, so that way they get all of their nutrients from the air, right? So
Yeah, it's trippy.
Mhm.
An
Yeah,
amazing
and
plant.
I've heard I want to say that when they tend to grow in salt water, they actually store a lot of it in sacrificial leaves.
yeah, they do.
They store
And
they
the
store
leaves
the
they
salt.
just blow downstream.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Hmm.
Edison,
I'm
do
trying
you
to
have
think
any?
of what.
I'm not as well versed in Blackwater as I should be.
As you
It's fun to
should
get
be.
into.
Just in case you go to that one party and they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey,
Hey, how much do you know about Blackwater?
tell me everything you know about Blackwater, or
Or
Yeah.
else you're not cool.
we're gonna whack your
I'll-
13-year-old puffer fish."
Yeah.
Not my 13-year-old pufferfish. I don't
That's
even
right. Corey probably wasn't well versed in Blackwater. That's what happened.
That's what happens, man.
Are there Blackwater biotopes in Africa?
Yeah, I was
Mhm.
thinking about rift zone types of
Yeah.
blackwater where oh man, I can't remember what their names are. They're the seasonal perennial
Yeah.
fish that are born out of the dehydrated eggs, basically.
Hmm. Sort of your temporal pools.
Yeah.
Uh
The
gosh.
name is there.
Most
Yeah.
Congo and lower rivers flow through our Blackwater. Congo Basin lakes,
Mm.
New Calabar, Nigerian River Delta are Blackwater.
Oh, cool.
They're all over the place. Indonesia, Australia, Africa,
Hmm.
the States has them. Southern U.S.,
Yeah,
Deep
I
South,
mean,
basically.
Amazonia. Sounds like
anywhere.
they're
I
all
mean,
over.
just about anywhere where you can find, you know, botanicals falling into water, I guess.
Yeah.
You're going to have some sort of a drop in pH, as long as there's not some sort of, you know, heavy carbonate
Influx
offload, I guess.
nearby.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess that, yeah.
if I'm not
Never mind.
mistaken, a lot of Blackwaters will also come from flooding seasons too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it'll flood,
Definitely.
it'll wash out stuff from the dirt that's close to there. Blackwater.
You broke up there and it's like a little bit.
Okay, so
There you go.
it'll like flood. It'll bring up stuff that's been decomposing, and those dissolve makes those dissolved organic compounds and makes black water in the floodwaters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty common in the Amazon. That tends to happen quite a bit. That's where a lot of your quarries tend to really thrive, is when the water comes and floods those, you know, heavy leaf litter scattered areas, you know.
That's why if you drop your tank a couple degrees, you can get your quarries to breed.
Mm-hmm. Because as soon as those rains come in, it drops the temperature, and that's kind of what triggers their spawning. Is, you know,
And I believe
you've
that's
got
the
your
same
temperature drop, you've got your TDS drop, and then that also means, hey, they're going to be finding a lot of food after that forest floor floods, you know, all of your invertebrates and stuff that are under all of that leaf litter, as well as everything else that ends up thriving from that,
Yeah.
you know.
Aren't like bristlenose plecos the same way,
Mhm.
where it's like the rainy season triggers so the floods, and yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's that way with a lot of them. A lot of the Loricariidae, they all tend. A lot of them tend to spawn when that temperature drops and the TDS drops down. You know.
Yeah. Well, cool. I guess the last question is, what is our favorite Blackwater environment, and why?
Oh, my favorite's in the Amazon for sure. Those high
That's what I
flow
was gonna say.
rivers.
That's what I was gonna say.
The high flow rivers
You guys are wrong,
probably
but
my
it's okay.
favorite. I'm okay with being wrong. I've never fully been right, so
Not always right, but
I'm-
I'm never wrong.
that's right. So
I have to
gotta
say,
go.
I've hated tannins, always hated tannins. And it wasn't until the article that I did with Melanie that I was like, nah, I kind of want to do a little baby like Blackwater setup just to.
You got a tank
Mess
behind you
with
to
it.
do it, man.
This is true. She could probably help me set one up too. Like, it's just interesting. It's an interesting setup. It's an interesting little system. You know what I mean? And even talking today more about a lot of it, it's trippy. And I've never ventured into it, but you know, in past tanks, as soon as I start seeing tannins, I run carbon, gets sucked right out. So like, I like crystal clear water. You know, not saying anything about Blackwater tanks are bad or whatever, but
I mean, there's always going to be a time and a place for you know, your tannins, and I just tend to favor it personally.
yeah,
But I mean, of course, I've had tanks where I haven't wanted tannins in them, and you know, your crystal clear Neocaridina fire red cherries. You know, I'm gonna want clear water on that, but
yeah.
you know, something
See them
about
every
being
once
able
in a
to,
while in a Blackwater tank.
yeah, something about that. Being able to recreate those, you know, miniature natural environments that some of these fish thrive in is just, I don't know. I like that facet of it.
And that's what it probably was more so just due to ignorance out of Blackwater environments, right? It was more so like I'm trying to aquascape and then I throw a newer piece of like Malaysian wood in and it starts leaching tannins and I'm like, rip it out. You know, like where it would be cool to actually set up an environment that's like true Blackwater where it's a lot of botanicals, a lot of like rotting organic matter in the tank. It was gorgeous. And it was Melanie showing me pictures. We were geeking out. Like, she's like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I do like more planted tanks. What do you do? And she's like, Blackwater. And it's just, some of her scapes are gorgeous. So I'm like,
Oh yeah.
it's got me like, you know, that beam, you know, the guy holding the girlfriend's hand and he's looking back like, oh, dang, Blackwater.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of those setups, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
All right,
always
Edison.
enjoyed it.
I think my next big tank project, I wanna make a discus tank. I've never kept
Blackwater.
discus. Yeah,
Drink
so
the
drink the Blackwater, the Kool-Aid, the whatever you want.
Drink the Kool-Aid. That is not Kool-Aid.
That's what I was referring to.
Drink the tea.
Put the Nikes on.
Get a nice 125 and fill that thing up with leaf litter about 3 inches thick.
Get some discus, get some
And
then
then never see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically never.
And then they
ever.
fade into the back.
It doesn't matter how much light you put on that tank, you'll never see them when they get to the back of the tank.
It's like I've had plenty of fish that just disappeared. I have no idea what happened to them.
Yeah, I will say a lot of the iridescence in some of these fish comes out in Blackwater a lot better too.
Yeah.
I've noticed that, especially with black neons. For some reason, I've always thought, you know, black neons are all right, you know, kind of mid-level fish. But once I threw them into Blackwater, I was like, oh, wow, I can actually appreciate some of the beauty just because that iridescence kind of shines through. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's some sort of a refractory, you know, effect that the Blackwater has, or if they're just, I don't
Maybe
know.
they just color up more because they're happier. I mean, you
Could
see
be.
that too. Like sad fish are generally kind of pale, you know,
Mhm.
would be
Gross
vibrant,
looking, yeah.
but they're just not happy.
Yeah. Yeah. They have a little bit of red around their eye that really pops out. And then that white iridescent line down their side, just, it pops. It's surprising.
It's
Chris,
that
what's your favorite?
contrast.
What's your favorite Blackwater?
I'm gonna have to go like
You will be judged.
Yeah. You're
Southeast
wrong.
Asia tide pools, like
That's a good
Southeast
Yeah.
Asia.
No,
That's a good choice.
Yeah. Mostly
Yeah.
because I've always, at least since I've started in the hobby, I've dreamt of at least doing some form of a lotus in a tank, right? And that's it's kind of where betas come from, is those kinds of rice fields and
Yeah.
mhm.
perennial flower fields. And so it's one of those things that I eventually want to get to. I'm really nervous for it because of the high nutrient like requirements to have a lotus, like a full size one to bloom, because you need to have basically a dead cow underneath your substrate in order to do it.
Yeah.
But like, you
Goes
know,
on
it's
Amazon.
well, yeah, but like still,
Doesn't
how many
necessarily have to be a
how
cow.
many root tabs are they going to need for?
How many root tabs does it take to get a lily to bloom?
Yeah,
That's
basically.
an article. That's a TikTok right
Yeah.
there.
Hey, all you got to do, just let the lotus take care of your bodies that you need disappeared.
Mhm.
You could dose a Blackwater tank.
Yeah, you can, but like it doesn't. It's lotuses are really like kind of related to like the same type of starches that are in potatoes. So what's going
So
to
you can
happen?
eat them.
Yes, in
Sour
fact, a
cream
lot of
on
people
them.
do.
Throw
Really?
potatoes in the tank.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've done a sweet potato in a tank,
well,
but
you know.
Oh yeah.
Let's do it.
But,
If you get a lily and we'll dose the heck out of it. We'll grow it in a bucket. I'm like half serious.
okay, let's do it.
Just don't use the bathroom. Just use the bucket.
What?
Nutrients.
We could
Edison,
teabag it too.
There's
That might help.
Yeah.
What?
Teabag the bucket.
Botanicals, bro.
I just can't. I just can't.
No, but half kidding. I would love to like get one and dose it. If
Yeah.
it's like high nutrient, we can run like the EI method on it and see if we can get the thing to bloom.
Oh yeah,
Throw it
that would be
outside,
great.
sun, full carbon, EI method underneath.
It's
I
too
bet
bad that
I can get it to bloom.
yeah, I was about to say it's going to be you that's going to have to do it because me and everybody else in here lives in a place that it's too cold to bloom things. So,
Bro, it's 34 degrees outside right now.
still warmer than here.
I'm at 5,000 feet. No, in the summer I could probably do it.
Yeah.
Like spring, summer. I'd be down.
Yeah.
It'd be a fun little experiment. I don't know anything about them, but I can figure it out.
I don't know. That
Well-
must suck. I'm down by the coast.
We'll make him do it then. I'll send
All
you
right.
the dry salts, the dry fruits, and you can do it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I didn't even
Well-
go into the outdoor ponds I've got.
oh boy.
Oh, boy.
Another episode. This one's getting
Yeah.
long. People
Yeah.
can start
Yeah.
complaining that we're rambling.
You know, it's only elderly people that complain about that, right?
The
No,
ones
they're the
that'll
ones that probably
ramble at
like
you
it.
anyway.
It's like the 14-year-old who's like, they talk too much. Like,
Just tell me what beta I need.
just tell me what to do. Just tell me what.
Yeah.
Yeah, just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to all this.
Wait, so you're telling me I can't use the rainbow barf gravel?
Come on, cut to the chase.
Cancel.
You can't.
Come on.
We've been
Get back
over
before
this.
put
You
it in.
can.
Good.
Canceled.
All right, Edison. Do you want to kind of get us out and?
Well, big thanks to Ramo for helping us with our Blackwater episode.
Thank you.
It's been awesome. I've learned a lot.
It has been fun.
Yeah.
Because now I'm thinking about Blackwater tanks. You know, just not that
Yeah.
the life will let me get another tank, but
Yeah.
I was
You
about
can
to
always
say,
find a
there's no
spot
way in
somewhere.
somewhere.
You
Just
can
on
always
top of
find
the
a spot.
fridge, in the bathroom. You know, you gotta have
Just a-
you gotta have your shower tank.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Alrighty.
Thanks for watching Tanks and Thanks, guys. Thank you for being a part of this. We'll catch you next week at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Friday.
Well, on that note, we're gonna roll the outro.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.